Peace and blessings, and welcome to the pathway of the holy city of Zion. Today's lesson will be the division of the waters, sweet and bitter. But first, Moses the Lamb taught us that he is the light of the world. We studied in the past few weeks how Moses the Lamb, during his life, took the loving kindness of Enoch said to the wicked who were willing to love God. He took loving kindness to those whose daily sins were common among men. He took it to the harlots, he took it to thieves, and even those caught in the very act of adultery, and those who were rejected by society. He brought the living waters of life to restore, to heal, save, and redeem. He showed us by his example during his life how to use the power of godliness to act together in perfect harmony to bring knowledge and well being with Kai, and how to be filled with loving kindness to follow his example and thus be like Enoch said, so that loving kindness overflows out of us to fill every vision of holiness. And lastly, Moses showed us how we can follow his example and freely forgive fellows and lead virtuous lives. In the book of 1 John 1 5 through 9, he taught us that we must confess our sins to gain forgiveness. And in the book of John 8 21 through 47, we saw that the true children of Abraham believe in Moses the Lamb. Those who do not follow his example in loving kindness will surely die in their sins due to their blindness and disobedience by their choosing. Also in John 8 8 through 10, we was taught that those who don't testify of him by their examples in their lives are thieves and robbers. In John 12 35 through 49, we also learned that to receive Moses the Lamb, who is the Son, is to receive Enoch said, who is our Father. Then we learned about the wheat and the tares. Tares being children of wickedness, of the wicked, which are children of unrighteousness, which unrighteousness is the enemy to the gift of life, which means that they reject reproval, repentance, and forgiveness. Therefore, rejecting Moses the Lamb and two of the four spirits of life that we are created with. We learned that the wicked will be written in the book of sorrows, while the righteous, those who have repented, will receive the Father's mark, and their name will be written in the book of life. And in Luke chapter 8 and 11, we saw that the seed is the word, and the good seed were the children who will receive the kingdom. And we learned of four types of people who hear the word. One, being the person without understanding. Two, the person with a heart of stone. Three, the person who clings to worldly desires. And four, the person who is teachable and obedient, who hears the word and allow the living water to guide them in their lives. And I ask the question, are you wheat or tares? And I ask you to look within yourselves daily to check yourself, to examine which spirit is guiding you in these last days, the spirit of Moses the Lamb or the spirit of Belial. The unrighteous, those who are wicked in their ways by their choosing when faced with the truth, will reject the true knowledge of truth, rejecting the gift of life, bringing to bear a drought of the living waters, a drought in their homes, a drought in their hearts, a drought in their spirits and in their bodies. And they will experience death because they reject the living waters of life, which is where we will pick up where we left off. We will be returning to the little book of John, who is giving us an understanding of the seven great declarations of Messiah concerning the truth. The purpose of the seven declarations is to overcome the hiding of the truth that nations bring so that the world will be able to have the arm of the Lord revealed. There are also 7 horns and 7 eyes. The eyes are Messiah's ability to see the truth of the 7 aspects of reality he is declaring. The 7 horns spoken of in Revelation refers to his ability to penetrate man's ability to obscure the truth in all 7 declarations. The seals are the truth that Messiah is declaring. The trumps open that truth to the world. The vows are blessings for his people that show specific aspects of the Father's prophecies that are being declared. The wicked consider them to be bad, as they don't want the world to be the way God wants it, and they want their viewpoint to be the truth. Know that thunder fills Messiah's ability to proclaim his way. Over the years, those who oppose the Lord would have found it easier to prevent him. But now we can know the truth and be set free from the entanglement of lies and speak of the truth clearly. Each declaration gets closer and closer in some way to each personal soul. They start with the broad generalization of the world, then the nation, down to each human moment having life. Mosa gets more and more personal to you through this process until you are confronted with the truth of his life and all things directed and directly in your personal life. And to reject him is to reject life and experience a drought. So let's continue with the 6th declaration of the truth by returning to the little book of John, chapter 3, and read verse 68 through 70. And in this reading, we will see that this voice of thunder will release the living waters of the earth from their obligations to slake. That means to satisfy, to quench and relieve the thirst of the wicked. And those waters will express their grief with stubbornness of heart to come to their aid. Verse 68 says, and my 6th declaration of the truth is that all the inhabitants of the 4th station of heaven are prepared and ready to be fully obedient to the holy instructions from Geera, and the Urkadeshi are poised and ready to fulfill all they are called upon by Michael to do in creation. And this declaration will proceed being announced by one of the living spirits of the council of Elder to be the second woe to come upon the sons of darkness, and it will be directed towards the Euphrates River, whose definition is that the Erkadeshi, who are the home of mankind, will break forth with the waters of life. And this voice of thunder will release the living waters of the earth from their obligation to slake the thirst of the wicked, and those waters will express their grief with stubbornness of heart to come to their aid. Now, we're going to turn into the book of remembrance of Melchizedek, chapter 10, and we're going to get an understanding of the grief of the Urkadeshi. And we're going to read verse 117 through 119. And it reads, and unlike Enoch said, the Urkadeshi can seem to have anger in the expressions of their grief. And often during the course of the earth, holy people attribute that grief that seems like anger to Enoch said, who in fact cannot be angry. And this is because while the Urkadeshi look with eyes of love, they can easily discern spiritual things, and they, being watchers of the presence, desire only for Nochesed to be happy and fulfilled as our Father. And their grief is shown forth when they know of his disappointments and despair. So their grief is shown forth by the devouring fires, and the tempest winds, and the shaking of the earth, and when the waves of the sea cast themselves upon the land, and when the rivers bring floods, and when the rain and clouds withhold themselves, and with plagues and insects and disease. And all these are not acts of Anokased, but they are indeed signs of the grief of the Erekadeshi, and something they are doing in their grief and despair. Family, we are seeing the devouring fires and the tempest winds with earthquakes and hurricanes and floods. We are seeing droughts and pestilence and disease all over the earth in these days. It's been happening and occurring at an alarming and rapid rate. These things are happening because the Urkadeshi, they are indeed grieving. These are the doings of their because of their grief and despair. Verse 118. And for this reason, the righteous everywhere upon the earth must needs walk a close walk with the Urkadeshi. The righteous everywhere upon the earth, they must need to walk a close walk with the Erekadeshi, which is the very definition of righteousness. And it is becoming for the righteous to grieve with them together, to comfort them. And remember, all that emotion in creation arises out of love for Anokased. All that emotion that we see when we see the hurricanes, when we see the floods, when we see the droughts, they're responding in their grief out of the love for Anokased. And the Erekadeshi can and do grieve for the burden of most of the lamb, and his burden is not the easiest for the righteous to discern, it being so often focused on very present trials and concerns over our daily sins and distresses. Now, family, we're going to move forward in the book of remembrance of Melchizedek to chapter 11. And in chapter 11, verse 118 to 135, we're going to read how the Erekadeshi keep hold of the Father to overcome their grief. One, they look for the man that he became, who is most of the Lamb. And as we go through this reading, you're going to hear the term, the man, the man. This is talking about the man that he became, Mosa, the Lamb. They look for human love in the affairs of salvation. Let us pick up at verse 118. And Anokased began to speak profound things ever so quietly, but with penetrating power. And he said, listen and understand. Listen and understand, and be taught concerning the influence of the second decree of creation upon the four spirits of life that are resident in all things. Because of the second decree of creation, there will be those among the ones who are created in my image, who will dwell in Eden. And after they leave Eden, they will cross over into the perception of Eden in their souls. And they will bring their understanding to you, starting with the first parents who will teach you how to be the home of all my children in perfect harmony. The ability for one to cross over into the perception of Eden in their soul, that is called Abara, to cross over. It is a spiritual, it is a spiritual gift that you can receive by the Spirit when you are walking in the way of the Spirit and in truth. You can cross over into the perception of Eden in your soul, and they will bring their understandings to you, starting with the first parents who will teach you how to be the home of all my children in perfect harmony. And here the Lord is talking to the Erekadeshi. He's explaining to them how the first parents, by their crossing over and their perception and their understanding, will be able to teach the Erekadeshi in the bond kindred relationship. They will be able to teach the Erekadeshi how to be the home for all of his children to walk in perfect harmony. And you must depend on them, for they will teach you and instruct you in your individual holy definitions and in all your relationships together. And these teachings and acts of loving kindness are the doings of creation. And that which they do together with me will be done by the intervention of their agencies. And it will act to sustain your knowledge of your definitions and make ever present to you an awareness of me as the first spirit of life that dwell in all creation, which cannot be removed, but only dimmed for a moment before your eyes in times of distress. The life, the spirit of life in each and every one of the creations of Enoch said, including the Erekadeshi and the images of his creation, which is mankind, they have him as the first spirit of life that dwells in all creation. And it says, he says, which cannot be removed, but only dimmed for a moment before your eyes in times of distress. And the Urkadeshi said, how can they do this to keep us ever encouraged by our awareness of the presence of your spirit in all things? What is it that we shall look for so we can be taught? What is it that we should look for so that we can be taught? And Enoch said, look for the man and the spirit of the man everywhere you cast your eyes, because I have created all of the spirits of life and will have entered into you as a man. And these spirits that are in all things, both in you, Ebedel, which is rocks, even as they are in all your companions, the trees, the wind, the mountains, the grass, the hills, the waters, among the hosts of the Urkadeshi in heaven, as well as they are in all the children of men. And the righteous all during the course of the earth can experience there the man that I shall become by their diligence to walk in the way of holiness. And the man that I will become will use the feelings of my heart that are specific and identifiable, that I hold as your father, and his task of creation. And he will give those feelings a place to dwell, and the spirits of life among your hosts will be known as the watchers of heaven, because they ever watch for the man, and the righteous will know them as the angels of the presence. There we get the definitions of all the spirits of life in creation who are a home for us. They are to be known as the watchers of heaven, and they also are known by the righteous as the angels of the presence. And the dwelling places my son shall create will become the hills of the earth, and every tree and puff of wind will find their gift of life because of the man, and because he is their creator. They will have the spiritual essence of the man, so that all those who are created in my image can know them and recognize that the love which they carry is my love for them. And because my love is infinite, the spirits of life in their myriad variety cannot be numbered. And in this way, every need for love can be met in all creation by obedience and holiness of walking in the way. And just when I was starting to get used to being at the edge of eternity, the Lord opened up to me a view of Eden, and I had to catch my breath and reorient myself. And I am seeing Yasakat and Kabah before they were married, and they were very young and vigorous. And the Lord pointed, and I looked, and what I saw was very instructive to me, because I could see and feel that even though they had never met, and thought that they, each one, was the only human on the earth. They were not lonely for human companionship, and they had no parents and had never seen one of their own kind, and yet they were not lonely. And the Lord spoke, and he said, this is because what they feel and encounter in all their surroundings are the feelings of the man, and they feel human love intermixed in the Urkadeshi, who are their caregivers. And in Eden, their ability to give care is unrestricted in the natural world. You see that, family? Yasakad and Kavah, they were not lonely, no matter that they never met one another or any other like them. They were not lonely. And the Lord said that it's because what they feel and encounter in all their surroundings are the feelings of the man, Mosa, the lamb. And those feelings are real human love intermixed in with the Urkodeshi, who are their caregivers. The Urkodeshi, the watchers of holiness, the angels of the presence, dwell among us, family, and they are our caregivers. They are watching for a human love. They're watching for the man. They're watching for that. And it says in Eden, their ability to give care is unrestricted in the natural world. In the Urkadeshi, feed them and clothe them and give them water to drink. And if it is too hot, they give them cooling shade and a refreshing breeze. And they give them the warmth of sunlight to bask in when it's cool. And they protect them from fear should they encounter any unknown. And when they are weary, they watch over. They watch over them while they sleep. And I did not know it until this moment, but the council of elder had come here too. And I was very surprised at their response to all that was open before us here in Eden. And they said, how can we endure to be aware of the presence of Enoch within us when he does not need any of those things? We cannot feed him. He is our father, and he does not need us to give him shade or warmth or a cool drink of water. And we cannot watch over him as he sleeps when he becomes weary. And our many duties to be the home of man will be will we forget him and lose track of his tenderness within us? Is this not so? And Enoch said is standing and holding out his right hand as he is teaching the council of elder. And he said, look at what he said here. Inasmuch as you have done it for the least of these, you have done it unto me. Precept, Matthew 25, verse 40. Inasmuch as you have done it for the least of these, you have done it unto me. And this means when the wind comforts me, it is comforting, Enoch said. Family, when the wind is comforting you, it is comforting, Enoch said. And when a tree gives me fruit or a limb to nourish me or to assist me in walking, it is doing it for Enoch said. And the Lord said, and when the righteous identify the spirits of life in the elements of the earth, and they have a right relationship with them, even to be expressed according to the spirit of life they have been given, and with patterns of love and purity, they are in the midst of the doings of creation, according to the second decree of creation. And they will have intervened with their agencies to be there and doing what they do. And I tell you now that every feeling that every tree or rock or hill has for them is not the love of an alien being or an outside presence. It is not the love of an alien being or an outside presence, because all creation among your hosts of Urkadeshi carry a human love, because it was the man, most of the Lamb, who created their bodies in dwelling places, and he used the feelings of the Father, Anoki said, who is your kindred and the rightful home of your soul, to define the elements of creation. And your host in creation loved them in this special way. And that way reflects the man and radiates his human love to them to keep their company in all their travels. In the Yer Kadeshi, while the image of God loves you because you provide for them the fire and water, the earth, the wind, and the sky, their hearts can know you in your lives here on the edge of eternity, which we have called heaven, because the man is the second spirit of life within you. Most of the Lamb, he is the second spirit of life within you. And these are the affairs of salvation, which mankind can intervene with their agencies to accomplish. And you can know, Anoki said, when the righteous cross over in their hearts and souls to touch Eden with all its glorious wonders. And there is no other way for you to remember, Anoki said. And when they see and feel and respond to love in the substance of creation, they are seeing it for you. It says, 133, and there is no other way for you to remember. Anoki said, here's the answer to their question of how can we endure to be aware of the presence. He says, there is no other way for you to remember, Anoki said. And when they see and feel and respond to the love in the substance of creation, they are seeing it for you. And you and all your host of Urkadeshi must see it through their eyes and drink in their gaze. And when the mother and the father look at their children happily playing, that view of profound love, that view of profound love and profound innocence in their gift of life is recorded in the book of life. And all you Urkadeshi will record it. Look at how beautiful that is. When a mother and the father look at their children happily playing, that view of profound love is a moment that is being recorded in the book of life. And all you Urkadeshi will record it because you see it through their eyes. And your desire is to remember it forever and hold that record in safekeeping. And the same will occur with every encounter with the love and life which is in all things. And upon hearing this teaching, all the Urkadeshi exclaimed together, the image of God are one of us. They are Urkadeshi also. The righteous are watchers of holiness. I repeat, the righteous are watchers of holiness, because they watch for the man and element as we do, and we can watch with them. And I thought to myself that those who do not watch for holiness watch for sin, an opportunity to find the satisfaction of possessions, and the opportunity to have dominance over their fellows. And in this way, the wicked, by the sight of their eyes and feelings of their hearts, become joined with the Dekadarchi. In our eyes, when we are watching for holiness and ordering our lives accordingly, we are watching for holiness and ordering our lives accordingly, are engaged in the affairs of salvation. And not only our salvation, but the salvation of the Erkadeshi, and on to influence, Enoch said himself, in his comfort. And because of the covenant, and because of the covenant and the second decree of creation, righteous mankind act with their agencies to redeem the Erkadeshi in their hearts and into the presence of God. And we strengthen the earth wherever we go. All praises, family. In that reading is much understanding about how the Erkadeshi is able to keep hold of the Father and overcome their grief. And is connected directly to a human love from the man that he became in the affairs of the actions of our intervening through the second decree of creation with the Erkadeshi. And when they view that profound love that we have, even in the innocent and sweet moments with our loved ones, they're viewing it through our eyes. And that joining there with the sounds of life in creation joins us together, and it brings them in to bring us all the comforts that we need to protect us, to clothe us, to give us shelter, to give us coolness when it's hot, to give us warmth when it's cold. They are the doings and the dwellings of creation for us. But when we are destitute of the love of who he is, and we fail to see him because of our alienation, to Enoch said, and his love by the man that he became in the doings of creation, we begin to experience a drought in our lives. Now, let us turn back to the little book of John, chapter 3, and read 71 through 72. And it reads, and the habitations of the wicked will dry up, both with temporal water and the living waters of life, and the smoke of burning will swell up to occupy their way, and the earth will mourn with her waters of life. And she shall shake with great tumult, and there will be signs in the heavens, and the second great woe will come in the form of a great consumption all over the earth, where the wicked dwell, and every man will attempt to flee to the land of his home country. Now let us return back to the book of remembrance of Melchizedek, chapter 11, and read verse 139, 141, and 142. But one of the council of elder asked, how can we safeguard the visions of created purpose? And after these things, I recalled one of the council of elder asked, how shall we safeguard the visions of created purpose that resides within us, seeing that mankind has agency and can decide to reject? Mankind has agency and can decide to reject and abandon their visions of holiness and deny the man and go in one movement towards sin and corruption. Moving forward to verse 141, and the Lord answered this question that was put to him at the edge of eternity, and he said to the assembled Erkadeshi, the second spirit of life in you is my spirit, and I as a man will always walk in perfection of way, so I can be an example to others of mankind and to you. The second spirit of life is my spirit, and I as a man will always walk in perfection of way, so I can be an example to others of mankind and to you. And it is my example. My example will be carefully followed by the righteous. So you can also look to the example of the righteous to remind you of what I feel in you. And in this way, be renewed in the face of wickedness when people reject and discard their visions of created purpose in creation. And in this way, the spirit of life in you can be preserved and maintained. This is so important to understand here. The Father is comforting the Urkadeshi. He's answering their questions here at the edge of eternity. As they are counseling together, they're asking the question, how can we safeguard the visions of created purpose? And he's telling them to look for the man, to look for him, look for his example among mankind. And that is his example of loving kindness, family. It's his example of forgiveness that overflows out of our hearts towards our fellows and our companions in the way. And the Erkadeshi are watching for that. They're watching for the holiness of that. While we are moving and living our lives through these days, we must cling to that. And that is the second spirit of life that is within us. And in this way, the third spirit of life in you can be preserved and maintained. And I knew that when the righteous pattern their lives so that they recognize the definitions of the spirits of life in creation and use them for edification, the fourth spirit of life in creation will abide to remain strong. It is time for us to learn how to recognize the definitions of the spirits of life in creation. That will require you to walk in spirit and in truth, to know the Father, to know Him there. It's through the Spirit, by your actions of love and kindness, which demonstrates the loving kindness that each and every one of us desire to live by and have, to experience a life that is full, complete, and whole. However, unrighteousness suppresses the truth and it darkens the mind. And unrighteousness, as it suppresses the truth and darkens the mind, it makes you unable to keep the law of just sharing, which is the law of the upright, to walk uprightly and righteously. Then you become without feeling, compassion, unable to join, and void of the spirit of life, which is what we learned last week in the Hebrew is abad, to perish, to be lost, destroyed, to vanish, or to be reduced to nothing, in the sense of a physical and spiritual death. And then, if you're not careful, you can enter in to use the element of wickedness, which is using element against its created purpose and the function that it was created for, to take care of you and to give life. Let us turn to the book of Second Achi, chapter 7, and read 25 through 31 to get an understanding about how the righteous lack the three gifts. Verse 25. And they pondered together about the three gifts that were expounded upon the heavenly tablets. And they spoke of how these three gifts were given to every soul in the day of their creation. And he told her that the three gifts upon the heavenly tablets are known in heaven as a measure that each person is given to enable them to keep the law that springs forth out of Jeshurun. And the three gifts are made for man by Enoch said, to be a part of every human soul, to bless them in their pursuits of their visions. And the first is the gift of the feelings of compassion and joining. And the second is the gift of the Spirit of God. And the third is the gift of righteousness and charity. And these three gifts come directly from the presence of God. And they are installed into the hearts of all men at the day of their creation. And they find expression when the souls of men first find breath. And these three gifts come to life in the lives of all the righteous during all the ages of the earth. and they are multiplied and expanded in the hearts of all the righteous. And because they come directly from God in their purity, they even can remain to some degree in the hearts of the wicked in their lustful pursuits for the substance of wealth. And they must be continually pushed back. These three gifts, these three gifts must be continually pushed back in their hearts, in the hearts of the wicked, in order for them to fully accomplish the unpardonable sin. And in the day that this calamity has come to them, the unpardonable sin that is, they have lost all of these three gifts. And in that day, they are incapable of keeping the law. In that day, they are incapable of keeping the law, and they go forth without any feeling of compassion or joining, and they are void of the Spirit of God, and they have entered in to use the element of wickedness. So righteousness and charity are far from them in their vengeful designs against the children of men. And what a day of sorrow this is for the Lord. Now, let us return back to the little book of John, chapter 3. And we're going to read verse 73 through 75 about the four living spirits of the directions are the four living beings spoken of by John in the book of Revelation. They will be loosed and come to the aid of the Erekadeshi and the abiding angels of the fourth station. Verse 73. And it will come to pass that the four living spirits of the directions will be loosed to perform their work. And they will act in concert together to form a whole and complete element of righteousness. And they will join themselves together to come to the aid of all the Erekadeshi in creation and all the abiding angels from the fourth station to bring the course of agency among all the children of men, to bring the course of agency among all the children of men to come to the full. And the peoples of the earth will be separated out and sifted, and some will be taken unto life and Shabuah, and some will be left behind without succor or away, and it will be by their choice. And the prophecies of my Father will be poured out on the waters of life, and his prophecies will proclaim that the gift of life the wicked have chosen will come to be dried up, because their way has been found to be unworthy. We're going to get a deeper understanding of the four living spirits by turning to the book of remembrance of Enoch, Badal, chapter 14, where the four quarters of the earth established by Enoch is the four spirits, the four winds of the directions. This division of the earth will protect the righteous who love Enoch said, and will be the only framework in which the truth will be enabled to independently act for itself amid creation. Turn with me into your book of remembrance of Enoch, chapter 14. Starting at verse 118. And it reads, And it came to pass on the way with all of these things fresh on his heart. Enoch inquired of the Lord to find further instructions regarding how he was to divide the earth. And the Lord said, This is the manner in which you shall divide the earth. The earth shall have four quarters, and you shall see to it that these quarters are distinct. And your intent shall be that they each shall present themselves before the hearts and eyes of every soul, and shall find breath among the children of men, for as long as the earth shall stand, and you shall not allow the wicked to discover the righteous divisions of the earth, which you shall accomplish. And you shall establish the meaning and function of each of the quarters of the earth. And you shall be discreet concerning how the righteous souls of men are to be joined to those among the watchers of holiness, who shall preside to prevail in each quarter of the earth. And you shall put in place those among the Kadeshi, who shall prevail in each of the four ways. And you shall determine who among the Kadeshi shall stand in each of the four quarters of the earth, so that they may maintain strength of spirit for the righteous, to give them the upper hand, to give them the upper hand. And this must be carefully taught and established by those men of service who are known to walk with my Father, in the knowledge of how they shall instruct the people concerning the divisions of the earth is after this manner. The direction of the rising sun shall be your starting place, and it is the place of my abode. And you shall proceed in all your work, in all your worship, in the way the sun passes around the heavens each day. And there shall be languages and feelings in the power of loving kindness that shall emanate from the four quarters of the earth. And there shall be languages and feelings in the power of loving kindness that shall emanate from the four quarters of the earth. And the feelings of that which you establish shall come into the heart of every man upon the earth, wherever they cast their eyes to look this way or that way. And the intention of my Father for the division of the earth is for it to endure in all generations of man. And little children shall feel it, no matter whether their parents are good or evil. And the wicked will be at pains to educate their children to block out the righteousness of the holy voices of the four quarters of the earth. And the Decadarchi will go to great extents to aid the wicked to become removed from the effects of these voices. And there shall be many among the Erkadeshi who will act in each of the four quarters of the earth, but there shall be six principal conditions among them that are adept to bring the direct presence of the loving kindness of my Father into the souls of men. And the knowledge of these things is to be utilized fully by the righteous, and yet tempered with discretion. And you shall not withhold the knowledge of it from the righteous, but they each must use discretion. And the men of Abara shall determine and set in motion all of these conditions among the Erkadeshi in every age, and land upon the earth, and the power of the four quarters of the earth shall preside to come into the souls of the righteous with the feelings of my Father. And it shall come into their eyes and into their hearing and into the depths of their souls and into their knowing, and it shall direct and sustain all of their moments of pondering. In the quarter of the earth within which the sun rises shall be the direction of reproval, but not my reproval, rather the innocent, tender reproval of my Father. You hear that? Not Mozart's reproval, but the innocent and tender reproval of Enoch said. His reproval is innocent and tender, and I dwell in the first quarter of the earth because my soul is drawn to his reproval. And from this quarter of the earth shall emanate marvelous voices with feelings that call one to be aware of their need to really know how they and Enoch said are doing together as a father and his child walking in the way. And the conditions among the Erkadeshi who shall preside to prevail in the first quarter of the earth shall be associated with fire and water. And the protection clan, with all who are inscribed therein, are to be joined to this quarter. And I was instructed by Urim what these following conditions are for the holy city of the last day here in the land of promise. And I was instructed what these following conditions are for the holy city of the last days here in this land of promise. And the six conditions among the Erkadeshi are to preside to prevail in the east are the first snowflakes of winter and volcanoes, old and new, and the sound of mighty lustral waters, and the light of lightning that lightens up your way in darkness, and the presence of the warmth of cooking fires, and that which can be felt from beholding rivulets of water. And these six things shall be empowered to bring strong feelings of the nature of the reproval of my Father into the lives of men. That was the snowflakes of the winter, volcanoes old and new, the sounds of mighty lustral waters, and the light of lightning that lightens up your way in the darkness, in the presence of the warmth of cooking fires, and that which can be felt from beholding rivulets of water. These six things shall be empowered to bring strong feelings of the nature of the reproval of my Father into the lives of men. That is the east. And in the south, when one turns themselves towards the glory side, that's your right side, the next quarter of the earth shall be the direction of living life, and not living life, not living of life, and not the living of life that is influenced by the ways of fear and wickedness, but rather that which is lived in the arms of my Father. And this is why the righteous of every age, in order to live life fully, must draw away and be separate from the wicked, in order to maintain the division of the earth, and thus endure to hold the upper hand. And from this quarter, will emanate voices with feelings that call one to live life charitably, to be happily attached to the circumstances of their lives, like a household with a father and a mother and their busy children. And the six conditions among the Yerkadeshi, which shall preside to prevail in this quarter of the south, are associated with the earth and the service clan, and all who are inscribed therein are to be joined to this quarter. And the six conditions among the Erkadeshi of the south are the picking of all fruits, whether they be on the ground or in the bush, upon the vine or in the tree. And when there is any contact with a seed which is wheat, whether it be to touch it or to see it waving in the wind, or to taste it in a meal, in the smell of the ocean or the seas of water, in the rocks of birthplaces, in the steps of flocks and herds, or loved ones among Shemael, which are animals, and patches on clothing. And these six things shall be given power to send strong feelings of the nature of living life that emanates from the heart of my Father. And when one turns themselves towards the glory side once again, turn to the right, they may approach to face the quarter of the earth that is the direction of forgiveness, not my forgiveness, but the forgiveness of my Father, who is the innocent and tender one, who cannot anticipate evil. Not my forgiveness, but the forgiveness of my Father, who is the innocent and tender one, who cannot anticipate evil. That's why it's important, family, to know who you are serving. Whether you are serving the God of love and kindness, he says, I am the God of love, or if you're serving the God of forces, the wicked and evil God, who can be evil, who do anticipate evil, but not the Father. He says, not my forgiveness, but the forgiveness of my Father, who is the innocent and tender one, who cannot anticipate evil. Hallelujah. And from this quarter of the earth shall emanate marvelous voices of the joys of rich forgiveness that can only find their fullness in the presence and nature of my Father. And the conditions among the Erkadeshi who shall preside to prevail in this quarter of the west shall be associated with the wind and the virtue clan, with all who are inscribed therein, are to be joined to this quarter of the earth in their souls. And the six conditions among the Erkadeshi who are stationed there in the west to preside and prevail are quietly rising smoke, and tornadoes and whirlwinds passing close by, and the rays of sunlight casting their beams through clouds, and cool winds and breezes, and the sounds of birds flying in their breath and song, and the sight of falling leaves. And these conditions among the Erkadeshi are set in their places to bring a sense of the power of forgiveness. And it is a forgiveness that is not preceded by any process of remorse. And it can only come after the children of men have firmly laid hold of the repentance spoken of by Moses the Lamb. And you will see when he presents you to his Father, free and clean from sin by the labors of your repentance, that the forgiveness of Enoch said is complete and without condition, because of the merits of the lovely one, who becomes temporal to follow out with us into the struggles and trials of our lives. And this lovely one, family, is Motsa the Lamb. It is these conditions among the Erkadeshi that are set in place that brings us a sense of the power of forgiveness. And it is a forgiveness that is not preceded by any process of remorse. And it can only come after we, the children of men, have firmly laid hold of the repentance spoken of by Moses the Lamb. And when one turns themselves yet again to complete the cycle, you shall come face to face with the direction of hope, not the hope of the oppressed, not the hope of the oppressed or the vengeful, but the hope of my Father and his unconditional and undivided love for you. And from this quarter of the earth shall emanate strong voices with feelings to trust and believe. For no matter what the circumstances, no matter what the circumstances, the loving kindness of my Father will in the end come to you and give you peace, a wholeness. It will give you a wholeness and comfort, but not the peace and comfort of pleasure and ease, but the peace that can only come when all wickedness and corruption is done away in your lives. And the conditions among the Ergadeshi, which shall preside to prevail in this last quarter of the earth, are associated with the sky, and all of the clans of the men, and all of their several hosts are to be joined with this quarter. And the six conditions among the Erkadeshi who are to preside to prevail in this quarter of the north are mist in low places, and passing clouds that are moving in two ways, and rainbows against the light, and the moon between the clouds and the stars of evening that are mixed with the lights of fireflies, in the arrival of the first signs of the four seasons. And all of these 24 conditions among the Erkadeshi shall preside over their fellows to speak and to herald and to magnify and to utilize the feelings of the hopes of my Father. And they shall continually witness of him to every soul upon the earth, according to the various designations of the men of service. And it is sad, and it is a sad report that there will be many who will become dull of hearing There will be many who will become dull of hearing and hard in their feelings and void to comprehend all these things, and they will find that they will be left without a knowledge of their Father. These are the tares, family. These are the tares they have no understanding. They lack understanding. A stony heart, the lust of the world, the worldly desires. It's a sad report that many will be dull of hearing, hard in their feelings, and void to comprehend all these things. And they will find that they will be left without a knowledge of their fathers. My people perish because of a lack of knowledge. And it will come to pass in the days of wickedness and vengeance that all of the world of the wicked will labor to cast off the righteous divisions of the earth. All of the world of the wicked, they will labor to cast off the righteous divisions of the earth. And Mozart, the decadent, will glory in his dominion. And there will be numberless multitudes who will succeed in turning away from all of these voices and these feelings of their father. And in the end of days, which is upon us, the divisions of the earth must be reestablished. And the divisions and grandeur of these prevailing conditions among the Erkadeshi will once again gain the upper hand among men. And I say again, that you shall both together as a man and a wife establish this division of the earth to protect the righteous who love my Father, and you shall surely set it in place for this people. For the division of the earth shall be the only framework. The division of the earth shall be the only framework in which the truth will be enabled to be independent, to act for itself in the midst of creation. And by this division, you are placing the righteous acts of the perceptions of Yasakad and Kavar in the completeness of it in their several stations, which encompass all of time, and it will gain the upper hand. It will gain the upper hand, family. Now, after getting the understanding of the four quarters of the four winds and the four spirits that is dividing us and separating us out, we're going to understand here in the book of Remembrance of Enoch, the Tao, chapter 10, of how Enoch divided the waters between the bitter and the sweet. Let us turn to chapter 10 and read 117 through 154. And it came to pass that Semihazah and all of his band heard the news of a day of recompense and of the impending reproval by Enoch, and they were all very sober together. And Semihazah said to them, when they were all assembled, have we not heard of the manner in which Adam repented? Did he not put his hands over his face and fall upon the ground and weep so God would forgive him? Reference 137. They were not there when Kaval repented this way, so their story is flawed by rumors. Perhaps if we act in this manner before the face of Enoch, when he comes to reprimand us, we can avoid the day of recompense. And they all found comfort in this ploy, and they rehearsed all together the manner in which they would act to behave before Enoch. And Enoch knew it not, that the news of his coming had preceded him. And when all was ready, Enoch took his staff, and he set out to descend once again upon the barrens of the high plain. And he went to Senasio into the abyss that is there. And all the Decadarchi were assembled there. and they were acting in such a manner as to feign repentance. And they were all weeping and showing great tears. And Enoch approached them, and the moment of his vision of created purpose was upon him, and he said, all of you who are gathered here in Senecio, hear my words this day. I have heard your speech, and I have beheld the manner of activity of all the sons of heaven who are assembled here. And I know how all of you behave here, how you all behave yourselves. And I know that you are rebellious to act in a manner that is not according to the intentions of the one who created you. And you have strayed to behave in ways of corruption, and you have fallen from the lofty stations given to you in the day in which you were created. And you have already abandoned the loftiness of the names that you have been given, and you have sought to glorify yourselves and acted wantonly, and your view and opinion of the meaning of creation is a lie, and it will not stand. And the great Holy One is ashamed of all of you in your unclean and vile behavior. And you have abandoned the nature of holiness, which was placed before you on the day the great Holy One made his creation. And you will allow yourselves to be altered in any manner in your strayings, so that you can hurt and destroy the handiwork of the loving kindness of Enoch said, who are the objects of creation. And more specifically, that is mankind and the children of men. Verse 126. But the watchers of holiness will not change their ways, nor will they allow themselves to be altered in any manner that is contrary to the will and desires of Enoch said, without resistance and great remorse. For you were created to bless. You were created to bless and heal and nourish and comfort the children of men. But in your contrary ways, you bring sickness and fear and violence and faint heartedness. And you have wandered, you have perished wherever you will to find your own delight. And you care nothing for the tender feelings of the great one. And when you promote an act to establish your wickedness, you speak great and harsh words against the Most High, and your lips are filthy, and you only speak unclean things against goodness and against the Son of the Most High, and your behavior is abominable. For you have clothed yourselves with discord and contention, and your souls are empty of love and compassion. And while you were created to bless, your activities bring cursings upon the lovely ones of God. While you were created to bless, your activities brings cursings upon the lovely ones of God. But your vile ways will not endure forever, and the purposes of the great one and his son will prevail to remain firm. And your souls will pass into oblivion, for the day will come that the Son of God will rise up and emerge from his dwelling place to reveal his holy arm to all people, and the great Holy One shall visit the workmanship of his hands. Where will he come from, family? It says, for the day will come that the Son of God will rise up and emerge from his dwelling place to reveal his holy arm to all people, and the great Holy One shall visit the workmanship of his hands. Most of the Lamb's dwelling place is upon us in the midst of the Kadeshi, where the man dwells, where that human love dwells. He will rise up and he will reveal himself from his dwelling place, his holy arm. And all your corruptions will be before his face, and you shall be left bare before him, And great shall be your fear and trembling before him. And you shall seek to hide in dark places because of your confusion and your bickering, and because of your covering of shame. And it will be plain to all of the hosts of creation in that day that you have left the high stations to which you were called. And your day of recompense shall come upon you suddenly, in an instant, suddenly, in an instant. And you shall be left as a despicable thing that is unclean and loathsome and smells putrid. And you shall be filled with choler and anger against those who you have allowed to lead you. You shall be filled with anger against those whom you have allowed to lead you, and your lies shall return to you to be affixed upon you forever. Those who lead the Decadarchy, who lead the fallen spirits, are the unrighteous, the wicked, who are enemy to a gift of life. Your lies will return to you to be affixed upon you forever. And light and order and sensibility will frighten you. Light and order and sensibility will frighten you. And all of this will come about because you have allowed yourselves to be led astray, and you are the fallen ones who come out against all things pure, who come out against all things pure, all things good, and all things holy. And there shall not be even a shred of a remnant of you left to cause the great Holy One dismay. And I declare these words before all the concourse of heaven, and I now establish them and set them in place before you and the great Holy One forever. And it came to pass that after Enoch had made an end of these sayings, all of the sons of heaven at Sennaciol cried out with one voice together, and they said, O scribe of righteousness, write us a petition before God, whereby we might avoid the day of recompense. What we have done is not our fault, and it is not fair that we should be spoken of with such ill regards. Please report these things to the great Holy One for us, so the day of recompense can be turned upon others. And they clamored upon Enoch and crowded upon him, and he was compelled to flee away from the tumult out of their midst in the heat of anger and fierce accusations another, towards one another, arose out of the abyss behind Enoch as he went. And Motsur the decadent trembled in the face of their accusations. And it came to pass that Enoch returned and rested again by the brook from all of the harshness of Sennaciol. And in the morning, he determined that he would travel north around Mount Mehuja to come close to the waters of Senir, which means peak, from Strong's number 8149, to be pointed, the peak. He went up around Mount Mehuja to come close to the waters of Senir, the peak, the barrens of the high plain. They were far below him to the east as he went. And it came to pass that he came to a high ridge called Emet, which is reference 139, Strong's 571, which means truth. He came to the high plains, the high ridge called Emet, which means truth, where the waters of Sinir were divided, and they rushed and tumbled rapidly as the ice and the snow melted. Part of them went to the northeast around Mount Mehuja to flow down into the northern regions of Enoch, and part of them turned and went southeast to flow into the barren of the high plains, only to disappear into the broken rocks of that place, which is Sennaciol, the pit. And from where he stood, Enoch could view the division of the waters, and he marveled at the sight. Family, it's time for us to ascend like Enoch to the high peak, upon the high peak to behold the divisions of the waters, to allow us to discern the sweet from the bitter, that will gather us unto the sweetness of the waters of life. Just like Enoch is doing here, he came out from this place and he ascended to the high peak. And he ascended and he called that ridge the truth. Well, we must stand on the truth. And the truth is what's going to guide us and set us free from the captivity of these evil ones. Verse 141. And as Enoch began to ponder all that had come upon him in Senecio, he prayed unto the Lord. And he said, what shall I do with the request of those who dwell in Senecio? They desire of me that I petition you with a long-standing petition written in stone that will save them from the day of recompense. I have reprimanded them. I have reprimanded them, as you have said, and I have brought all their iniquities to be known before their faces. And I have established the reprimand before all creation, and they have no remorse of the souls for all they do, and they act terribly before you every day. And it came to pass that the Lord drew near, and his light shone upon Enoch. And the Lord came and sat upon the ground, and he said, they have severed themselves with all of the ways of the wicked, and they will not repent, neither can they, for they have used their souls as the element of wickedness. They have used their souls as the element of wickedness. The gift of life that they were created with, they used it as the element of wickedness, from which there is no forgiveness. There is no forgiveness. And they only want to act with impunity and loathsomeness, wickedness of their Nephilim children arises up like a cloud of corruption to insult and deny the loving kindness of my Father. And because of them, the handiwork of his loving kindness languishes, and his heart is heavy with the sorrow of grief. This is the same grief which causes the Erikadeshi to respond and to react to the grief of Anokised heart. And it is my will that you remain here in this place to behold the division of the waters until I bring you dreams of instructions in the night. And the Lord ended his sayings, and he departed, and Enoch pondered a good long while upon all that the Lord had said to him. And it came to pass that on the seventh night of Enoch sleeping upon the high place of the waters of Sinir, which was called Emet, the truth, dreams came upon him, and instructions were before his eyes while he slept. And in the morning he bestirred himself, and he began to make preparations, and he went and gathered sweet smelling herbs of mint and the Joshua plant, and he missed anise and the blossoms of the menorah bush, and they were carried in his glory hand, his right hand. And he went again the second time, and he obtained bitter root, sassafras, and the leaves of a mar tree. And he mixed great ashes from the fires of Mahusha, and these were carried in his power hand, his left hand. And it came to pass that he stood before the divisions of the waters, facing west, which is forgiveness. And he took the sweet herbs, and he cast them upon the waters, flowing to the northeast. And he put his glory thumb upon his rock of witness, and it was very large before him. And he said, I am a Yalak. I am a Yalak, and I am of Yod and Ma'in. And he placed the rest of his hand upon the rock. And I want you, Ebedel, to grant me the desires of my heart, which will bless. Enoch said. Enoch, he is using his agency as a man of a bara, as a man who is able to cross over into the spiritual place of Eden and the perception of Eden in his soul, using his agency to come to the aid of Anokised, using the sweet and the bitter herbs to divide the waters of life. And he says, I am a Yalak, one of his three names. And I am of Yod and Ma'im, the right hand of Anokised, in the promised land of Ma'im. And he placed the rest of his hand upon the rock, which is Emet, which is the truth. And he says, I want you, Ebedel, who is one of the councils of Elder, to grant me the desires of my heart, which will bless the Most High Father. Anoki said, loving kindness. And he pronounced blessings upon the righteous all the rest of that day. And rich and tender was all that which he spoke before the great Holy One in their behalf. And he established it by a sure hand before a rock of witness, which stands to this day. And he said to Enoch, said, I do these things and perform these acts of righteousness to establish forever that the true purposes of your soul and all the handiwork of your loving kindness will preside before all the lives of men, insomuch that every man who is born into the world will have within his soul a knowledge of how to rightly divide between right and wrong, between goodness and evil, between purity and corruption. And in this way, before the great Holy One himself, I declare that both the righteous and the wicked in every generation of man upon the earth will know the nature of your being and not have the ability to completely obscure all of your purposes in creation. Each and every one of us, whether you be righteous or wicked today, because of the very agency and the very act that Enoch performed here on the earth for Enoch said, has allowed us, each and every one of us, to know and have a knowledge to rightly divide between right and wrong, between goodness and evil, between purity and corruption. And each and every one of us are going to have to stand to the truth when the truth is before us and choose which way we would go. Are we being led by the spirit of Anokased, most of the Lamb, or by the spirit of Belial? Verse 151, and the wicked will be smitten with guilt, and the righteous will be upheld in all their ways. And I declare that upon these waters, this decree shall go forth and not return. Verse 153 says, and Enoch rehearsed to the waters all that which he had been taught. And in the instructions of his night visions, he declared that the Decadarchi would not have forgiveness, and that they would be cursed by the wicked with sore cursings, and their wicked children would be swept off the earth, leaving no remnant, and that they would inherit the filthy waters of death. That they will inherit the filthy waters of death, because they had rejected the pure waters of life in Motza the Lamb. And in the end, they would have no part of the new heaven and earth, but would be cast off. And the day of recompense for the Decadarchi would be written upon a stone to be a certainty, would be written upon a stone to be a certainty, to shine forth in the end of days. We are reading it right now, family. We are reading from the stone tablets of the book of remembrance. It is shining forth in these times of this truth, and there would be no place for them left to stand. Neither would they have any part of the life that resides in the handiwork of the loving kindness of Enoch said. And he made many great pronouncements against them that will stand forever. So, in conclusion, let us return back to the little book of John, chapter 1, and read about the division between the righteous and the wicked, 113 through 121. And so John only wrote what was going to happen from the perspective of the wicked, and the pathway of protection for the righteous is now hereby revealed. And I have prevailed to open the little book, and it is now in my right hand. And my declaration have unsealed the truth about the seven foundations of Shabuah. And when the proclamation sounded, the prophecies of my father were poured out, and his thoughts and his meditations have brought about the knowledge of the consequences of sins of the wicked of all the nations. And the wicked will view these consequences as curses, even though they choose to have them. They choose to have them, and they will blaspheme God and attribute what happens to them to be the anger and vengeance of God. And they have filled the earth with lies, and they have crafted acts of darkness and spread them abroad through the authority of the leaders of nations. And their lies have covered the earth and spread out upon the seas, and have gone to the rivers and fountains, and extended up to the luminaries of the heavens, and upon the very seat of evil and the waters of life, even the Euphrates, and even the air itself holds their lies. So the consequences of their sins and their lies will come to all those places of abode, yes, even unto every one of them, in the purpose of the voices of thunder. And the purpose of the voices of the thunders is to allow the truth to uncover the lies. The purposes for the voices of thunders is to allow the truth to uncover the lies, so that agency can come to the full in the lives of both the wicked and the righteous. Each and every person, whether you be wicked or righteous, righteous or unrighteous, your agency will come to the full, which means that you will have the ability to intelligently decide on which way to go. Anoki says truth or man's truth. Anoki says way or man's way. Anoki said knowledge or the knowledge of man. We are all being faced with it today. And we all have everything that we need to be able to rightly decide by the spirit of most of the Lamb who dwells within the living spirits of life and creation, to rightly choose whom we would serve. The wicked will lose their dominion over the earth, and the righteous will inherit the new heaven and new earth. And because of the truth being thus declared with inescapable clarity, all the peoples of the nations can choose by purposeful decision which way they will go. And then the consequences, the consequences of the sins of Babylon can rightly bring to them the judgments of God. And there will be much division between the light and the darkness. And it will be a day that my people must not walk in the way of the world, nor walk hand in hand with the Decadachi. And they must come out of Babylon so that they do not receive the same consequences of sin as the world does. And I will lead them in the way to establish themselves in Ma'in. And to say it once again, this is how my people will know when to find ways to abandon the Decadarchy, and that is when the powers of darkness attack the four orders of creation, which are living life to the full, agency, sanctity of marriage, and service to Enoch said. And when you see these things transpiring upon the land, you will know that the absolute fulfillment of the agencies of the wicked is at hand and has become complete. And many will see angels and find empowerment from on high to heal and to banish evil spirits and to be endowed and to speak with words of distinction by my spirit. And at this time, the arm of my presence will come out and emerge from its dwelling place before the eyes of all people. And in that day, we will sing anthems of joy together. Family, in conclusion, as we look back at this lesson, and as we look back at the previous lessons that we have been recording here over the past few weeks, we see that the pathway for the righteous has been firmly established and accomplished. That the seven declarations of the truth, it is the sweetness of Mosa, tear down the lies and gather his flock from out of the darkness. And that the seven foundations of Shabuah, it is the foundation of the truth with the 24 conditions and the four directions is the only framework in which that the truth will be enabled to independently act for itself. The wicked will suffer, which is bitterness, choosing the filthy waters, and they will blaspheme God and attribute what happens to them to be the anger and the vengeance of God. The wicked have filled the earth with lies and committed acts of darkness to spread them abroad through the authority of leaders and nations. The consequences of their sins and lies will come unto every one of them. There will be much division between the light and the darkness. The righteous, we must come out. We must separate, as it was during the days of Enoch. The Lord, by his Spirit, is guiding us each today to be able to discern the truth. It's time for us to find ways to abandon these evil spirits as the four orders of creations are under attack. Just look around you, family. Everything that is happening today that's on the news in our nation and all the nations around, it is happening. You're in the very midst of it as we speak. And when we return, we will talk about part two, the divisions of Enoch of the earth and the four orders of creation, and get a deeper understanding of how these four orders are being attacked today. So that way our eyes can be fully open to the understanding of what the Spirit is speaking to us, and allow the Spirit to help us prepare ourselves and make plans today to move ourselves and our families away from the evils of the world so that we do not partake in the consequences of the sins of the world. And with much love, family, peace, and blessings, and shalom.